And folks, we start early. That's how we do things around here.
That's right, man. Early is on time and on time is late. The
That is
MOC has
correct.
spoken. Come on.
Oh my God, it popped back up. Guys, I'm Mike Murphy. Barracuda, welcome to Jig Squad. The beautiful gentleman next to me, the MOC, the Minister of Culture of Jig Squad, Mr. Epic Eric. Eric,
What's
here we
going
go.
on,
We got a
Cuda?
banger tonight, brother.
Man, Debo, man, I've been talking about streaming with him for like 9 months. We finally get to do it together. Who would have imagined on a new channel? Not me coming on
Hey.
Debo's stream because I don't have a channel. I was supposed to get on Debo's stream and we just never timed it right. And here we are on this brand new channel called Jigsquad. It's a revolution.
So it's a revolution is exactly right. And I'm going to tell you something. Debo's around the scene, and we're going to bring him in. I don't like waiting too long to get our crew in, right?
Do it, man. Do it.
Debo's been around the scene for a while, right? He does his thing. A lot of people know about his channel, but I don't know if everyone knows to what extent this man has been involved in making jigs over the last 6 months. And we're going to get at it with him a little bit. We're going to talk about that. And I'm not waiting to bring him in. So let's get this character in, Mr. Debo Fishing himself. Debo.
Characters.
Welcome to Jig Squad, brother.
I get called character quite a bit, so
it's all good, right? Probably that and a few other things, right?
Oh yeah.
Hey Murph, am I blurry? Somebody said I'm blurry on this.
You are a little blurry, buddy.
Well, you know what? Let me bug out and come back.
You want to pop out and jump back in?
Let's see if I can get a thing. All right.
Pop off that Walmart internet.
There you go, brother.
Man. Down in the basement, the Bass Lab creations are happening in the background. Mad science. Hold on.
I can see, dude. I was looking at that before, and I was like, "Damn, why do they have me on here? You've got all the knowledge here. You don't need this nerd on."
No,
you see all that stuff, people?
It's cray, man. It's nuts. I'll be right back. Hello.
He's got a lot of stuff. We'll see you in a second, Eric.
You got it.
So lots of people in chat tonight. You guys, listen, we appreciate you all. Shout out as always. Fishing the 262, JP Harold, Trippy Sticks, Crowley, Ross, Matt Acevedo, M. Jones, David Toll, Chris Ross, who else am I missing? Anthony, Westfall Outdoors. Oh my goodness. Guys, I'm sure there'll be more popping in. Bass, I see you up there. South Jersey Fisherman. Guys, I know you'll be coming in, but listen, tonight, like I said, Debo's been around the jig scene for a little bit now and having some new experiences, right? And, Jig Squad is about more than just, pimping all these fantastic tires out there. Our experience of tying jigs, and you guys know, I've said this before, some of the things I like to do more than anything else is simple, unpainted jig heads, depending on what type of plastics I'm throwing. But when we're making skirted jigs, we usually try and add a little bit more. And so it's good to talk about. There's people that come into the chat and Jig Squad's new. We're not even a month old yet, right? But Debo, an experience, and he's one of the people I know that's partnered up with Do It recently, and he's new to the game. So I want you to hear from somebody who's been around the YouTube scene and the fishing scene for a while, and you to hear some of these experiences tonight as we talk. So Debo, You've been, let me get Eric pop back in. I see him down there. I'm talking and not looking at Eric.
That's
Eric,
okay,
back
man.
in, brother.
Am I clear, Debo, hopefully?
Yeah, you're a little clear. There you go.
All right, good.
And audio's matched up. You looking good. So Debo, you started making jigs and hooked up with Do It several months back. 6 months back? How long ago would you say?
Yeah, last year. I don't remember the time for sure, but last year sometime. And it was really because of the airbrush painting stuff. When they hit me up, I'd been airbrushing for, I don't know, year and a half, maybe 2 years, if I remember right. I don't know.
Sure.
But that's why they hit me up. They had some paint stuff they were working on and wondered if I would want to join. And I was blown away that they would ask some nerd from Iowa like me. So I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And then they kind of poked me into the whole jig thing. I had no experience making jigs. My buddies over at the Bass Cave, Mr. Rundle, Mr. Marling, they kind of took me under their wing to do soft plastic stuff. So I had done that. I always thank those guys for teaching me that stuff, but I had never touched jig stuff before. And I will say, after doing the jigs, they're the most beginner friendly, easiest stuff to start with, in my opinion, out of the three.
So we're gonna talk. Obviously, this is Jig Squad, so we're gonna be talking jigs tonight, right? So, but I wanna get to something. I want to get this out a little bit, and this has come out in some of your videos. You recently had a video where you were painting crankbaits, actually, and you were talking about getting started painting crankbaits, and you were introducing some of the Bait Blast airbrush paints that just recently came out with doing molds. But the most phenomenal part of this whole thing is there's some guy in this stream tonight who had a big hand in helping out with designing those paints, right? Can you talk about that a little bit, my friend?
Well, so I did get help with it. It was a weird process. I don't know how much you guys have done with it or worked with paint and stuff. I don't consider myself a pro or anything. So, you know, for me, like I said, I was kind of blown away when they asked me. I know enough to be dangerous in that stuff. I feel like, you know, I try to do my stuff different, try to do my own stuff. And give them, I think it was maybe helping from more of a newer painter's angle as opposed to like some professional that knows everything, right? Like, hey, listen, when I was starting out, I know this might be hard, you know, maybe these colors would work, kind of that stuff. And I know a lot of people say, oh, I could never do the jig painting or the crankbait painting. You have to be an artist. I have zero artistic background. I can barely draw stick people, but I know baits and bait colors. So I think that's what really helped me is I know a lot about baits, different color baits, what colors kind of go together. And then I just had to learn how to airbrush and be more artistic.
And you've been airbrushing for about how long would you say, Debo? How many years? I
think I started in 2019.
Okay.
So 3-ish years maybe.
Okay, so they poke you a little bit, and we'll get back to some more airbrushing stuff later. So you kind of they get you in. They're like, hey, here's some jig making stuff, right?
Yeah.
Tell me the experience of starting off with that. What did you think at first? Was it oh my gosh, one more thing?
I was honestly scared because I'm like, I've never done this. I don't have anything set up. Like, I don't know what I'm going to need. And they're like, no, don't worry. We'll send you a box of stuff. You'll be able to go out of the gates, you know. But I'm looking up stuff and people are like, you got to make sure you have good ventilation. You know, lead can kill you and all that stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I get into? But, you know, once I get everything set up in my garage, I'll just say, yeah, make sure you've got, whether airbrushing or jig stuff, make sure you've got a well-ventilated area because it stinks.
Sure.
So yeah, get that ventilated, and then after that, I mean, it's really just pouring. Actually, I got a new mold from them in here.
Oh,
it's not new to me
already. Let's go.
New to me, but I got a little
weighted wacky.
Oh,
weighted wacky. It's called the inchy wacky. For those who want to know, it was pioneered in Japan.
And I think like the flick shake.
Wacky.
I feel like people
well,
like heard
that's
of the
called
flick shake and stuff.
It's called the inchy wacky technique. The flick shake was an inchy wacky head, to be precise, but Japanese anglers perfected it. Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Cause I always hear people talk about that. And I'm like, you don't have to have that type of worm. Like I like this, you know, style, this wacky rig. You can move it. It's almost like the power finesse is what I call it. If that's a thing, but you know, instead of having 100%. Instead of having the Cinco on and letting that fall and it taking forever, you can work it a little bit quicker, but it's still that kind of finesse, do nothing deal. But
right on.
all you got to do is a hook, a wire, and then just pour them in there.
Yes,
that's all there is to it.
That's right.
It's fun.
That's right.
I just made a whole bunch of those up, and I did not put in the weed guard. And let me tell you the story about this. Right, so for years we've been using a similar styled hook, right, a kale hook, and that's what we would use for our wacky rigs, and we would take the old school 1/8 ounce or 16th ounce rubber core sinkers. Do you remember those where you actually could pull out the rubber centerpiece? They have clip-on weights that you can use now too, or crimp-on weights. But we used to take those and we would pinch them around the hook and they would slide up and down nicely, a little bit of clacking. But that's what we would use all the time for wacky rigging. And so when that mold came out, I just got done about a week or two ago pouring about 50, 75 of those. And I actually have some things coming out where I'm going to be putting some skirting material on there and some tying material,
dude.
And it is coming out.
You mean like this, Mike? You stole my idea, man. You better give me credit for that because I'm gonna be pissed off.
Look at all the people talking. So Debo's got the idea. Eric's showing. He's like, I've already done this.
I did this a year ago, dude. You're way late to the game.
He did.
I thought I was coming up with something new. There's nothing new out there. That's why I ordered these.
I caught fish on these like 3 years ago, not with the dumbbell eyes because I don't pour lead. This is the cheap man. If you don't pour lead, you can just get the eyes, and this is a way to do it. But yeah, man, I did it with the good night. I put stuff on like flash.
So Eric has been doing this, and so Debo, Eric talks about the itchy wacky, the itchy breaky heart. I don't know what
not itchy. It's inchy, and it refers to when you can. If you don't know the technique,
here's the education, Debo. It comes.
I like it. I love it.
You'd cast it out, and on the way down, you would shake it on the way down. So this worm, and that's how the flick shake worm was designed, with crinkles, right? Not a straight worm. It was actually a bent worm. So get your used trick worms that been sitting in your boat all bent up. It's perfect for Inchy Wacky, by the way.
This is why he's here.
Right. Let it fall, and you're shaking it on the way down, and then you pull it up, and then you shake it on the way down. Most people do the reverse, right? If you watch Shin Fukai on YouTube, he does an Inchy Wacky technique in the spring for pre-spawn fish on channel swing bangs outside. So anyway, this brings it all home for a little fishing tip for the Jig Squad folks tonight. The technique, it was born in Japan. You can put a little fur and feather, whatever you want. Let it roll, man. Just do your thing. Put whatever you like on it. And if you don't pour lead, this is a cheap way to do it, or the way Kuda talked about. I just like to sex it up. So you got you got some dumbbell eyes. That's a Clouser minnow, by the way, style tie. Many ways to roam.
And Eric, you're the one that got me excited about doing that, right? Because of you were tying these. So I like it. So Debo's got this idea too. So the thing is, I've been trying to think. I don't want to say more, but in the next couple of weeks, there's going to be a video coming out of me making some style of this as part of a program with somebody else. But I'm always going to give credit to my minister of culture. There's no shame in this game. Where we learn our techniques from. That's
right.
You have to give credit, and that's where I learned to do it.
Ruins people.
I'm so excited to do it. And Eric already knows what am I going to call mine when I make it? The whack job. Yeah, man. So I first tied it with no silicone and just crystal flash. I wanted just a little target for those fish. I threw it on the Potomac. I used a split shot, believe it or not, and just a little bit of weight, probably like an 1/8 ounce. It might have been a 1/16. And just actually tied thread on it, crimped it, and then painted it with nail polish red. But you could do chartreuse for muddy water, whatever you want, man. I mean, there's cheap ways to do it, and there's expensive ways to do it, right? So if you got a airbrush, go at it. Debo, what are you thinking? What do you have in mind for like some material, or how you were thinking of maybe making some of these? Because I think there's so many cool little things that you could do with it. What did you have in mind?
Dude, okay, so I'm going to show you a picture. So I love it. I have horrible ADHD / anxiety, and I like something will get stuck in my head, and it just keeps going, and then it'll either eat me alive if it's something bad, or if it's something good. It's nice because I just keep thinking, okay, how can I improve this?
Yeah.
So last year, I
hold on.
Design.
Let me make my guy big.
Yeah, hold on. Get him up top.
It didn't work. It sucked, but it was a little hook with one of the old water gremlin egg sinkers. And I tied to it thinking, okay, what can I do to get like a different look on this? And I tied straight to it, tried balancing it, tried doing different stuff. I didn't get a bite on it. Maybe it was just the place I fished that day. But just trying stuff like that. And that's actually what got me thinking about, dude, I should get the like some of those Wacky hooks that have a little bit bigger head and tie it up there, because then it would be flowing, back behind with the Wacky rig in the middle. So
it's really cool, Debo.
You mentioned, can I just play off what Debo just said? So he mentioned water gremlin. Water gremlin makes a bullet head. So if you're throwing the Inchy Wacky in grass, the bullet head gremlin has a slit where you can use a bullet style head instead of a round ball head, and it comes through the grass with the Inchy Wacky technique with the weed guard way better. Then you could tie your material on, doesn't need it, but if you want to, you can paint the lead any color with nail polish. So that's a cheap Jig Squad hack.
Very good, buddy.
That's
very good.
That's a good point too. Is if you don't have the whole like weighted Wacky heads, I don't know where I put those.
Man, I'm still lagging bad, dude. This is terrible.
You are lagging. It was okay when you came back in, and then it started doing it again, Eric.
Yeah, let me try to get off again. I'll
come fine,
back
buddy.
on, man. But this sucks. Sorry, everybody. This is the first time I've lagged in weeks.
It's me. Must be me.
Nah, man. I don't know. The Debo show. I got a lag on the Debo show? What the heck?
You'll be back, brother. You'll be back.
All right, man.
I keep my eye open for you.
It's a winter time. We're like in deep freeze here. All right. Thank you, man.
I know. So it's crazy, Debo, because the whole thing is there are so many phenomenal jig companies out there and jig designers, but like I'm kind of old school, right? And you know, like there's a lot of companies, and I'm not knocking anyone because there's going to be some good companies coming on the show that do their own custom things. But you know, like I've always said, I've been pouring jigs myself for 20 plus years, right? And I think the cool thing is that I think as fishermen, we get caught up in what somebody else is throwing, and we want to replicate it 100%. And the cool thing about crafting and making things, like let's talk about sexy shad or citrus shad, or call it whatever color you want. I proved to myself that color and down in Florida off the beaches works for snook, works for tarpon, works for all these different fish. And it's just the point that we don't have to make everything exactly like everyone else. We can go and create these cool things. And that's why that Wacky jig hook or that Wacky mold from Do It is so phenomenal, because the sky's the limit. You could put a couple of strands of silicone on it. You could tie some hair on there. You can use some laser dub or even just some flash. And there's so many cool things you could do to dress that up, depending on what you want to do. And I personally think, see, you're a bank guy. So I'm going to say this too, because I'm not a boat owner. I fish out of boats for smallies a lot with my friends, but I fish the ponds a lot too and wade the rivers. And I'm going to tell you something. A Wacky rig is a crazy, ridiculous rig to throw even from the shore. And I think there's more that we could do to it to just dress things up and change it up a little bit. And there's fun making our own stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's the whole thing. Like it keeps me, it's one of the things that keeps me sane. I haven't had time with work and everything and family stuff lately, but you know, being able to paint, being able to make stuff is, like I always say, there's two sides to fishing. There's the fishing side that everybody thinks is like everybody that goes out and fishes, like just sits there and fishes. And then there's the whole, like I'm a tackle nerd thing, you know, like I'm a huge gear guy. Like if I can find a job in rods and reels doing something, like that's my favorite stuff to tinker with, is like taking parts, you know, taking reels apart, you know, what's in this one versus that. Yeah, I love it.
Wow.
Absolutely love it. So you know, just that whole side of it, collecting lures, collecting, you know, rods, reels, look at them, you know, trying different stuff, like nerding out over that stuff is like its whole own separate hobby, you know, beside fishing. So
I'm going to drop something here. I'm going to drop some information, and this is just the CUDA thing here, right? I because I said, I'm like, this is about getting started making jigs and some other things, right? And one of the biggest things that everyone talks about, or everyone that starts making jigs, and this is going to be true for what I do right now. And so, but it applies to anyone getting started as well. If you're in chat or you see this on replay, so you will see that when you go to paint jigs, right? One of the standard ways that most people are doing stuff is they're powder painting jigs, right? And they come in little 2-ounce containers. And then what I started doing, and a lot of other people started doing, was making fluid beds, right? Which was basically aerifying the powder to the extent where it was dispersed more evenly, and you were able to get a thinner coat on your jig heads. Basically is what a fluid bed does. But here's what I'm going to tell you. In the last 20 plus years of painting jigs, I have gone full circle. So I started off just using, you know, dipping them. And then I went to making them out of and putting them in the paint and fluid beds. And I'm back to dipping them in the containers. And I'm going to tell you why.
Whoa, really? Do tell, man.
I have gone back to dipping them in the containers. And here's why, because I am not making enough at a time for me to justify changing. Eric, I'll tell you what, I even went as far.
Mean like you're opening up the powder container.
I am opening up the powder container.
Jig, and you're dipping it right in. Okay, yes. I've not perfected that. I've tried it. Can you just give the viewers, me personally, one little tip on how to make a cleaner head when I'm doing that and not get the vinyl in the eye?
Yes. Here's the tip.
Talk to me, man. What do I do?
SDG, Adam Felder, is in chat tonight. All right. Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, this is the #1 tip. And Adam maybe got it from somewhere, but whatever. I got it from Adam. So I'm going to credit Adam. The #1 thing that you could do when you heat your jig up is you buy 3 30-seconds and 1/8 inch heat shrink tubing, 2-to-1 reduction. So basically, when you heat it, it's going to reduce in half, right? Or one time.
Sure. Okay.
And you put that on the eyelet of your jig. You throw it over your heat gun. You heat it. Yep. It reduces down. You go and dip it in your paint. You pull it out. I take another pair of Hemos or a pair of pliers, and I pull it off right then and there. Done. and your eyelets look clean as all get out. Now listen,
Brian, look at that post-it.
There's my guy in here, loosens it all up. Here's what he said. Hold on, where'd it go? Tap the paint containers on the bench. That's a good tip, but I'm going to go one step further. Every single paint container that I own, 2-ounce container, every single one, I add something into every single container. Does anyone know what it is? Has anyone ever heard me say this before?
Baby powder.
I add something, and let's see if anyone in chat knows it. I add something to every single 2-ounce paint container that I own.
Well, listen, you're going to freak out. Last year, I put my paint containers on a Ouija board, and then I went to dip them, and they came out with no paint.
Was that your first time with no paint on your jigs?
But it spelled run. I don't. What the hell happened? Don't put your powder coat paint on a Ouija board and try to do your. It won't work.
Listen, I got to tell you something. Whoever hijacked Travis Manson, Smallmouth Crush, and threw him into this chat right now in this live stream, I want to know who it was because I think it's taken over Eric's body. Alien talking Ouija boards. I feel like I'm on another live stream. All right.
So what do you put in it, man? Let's go.
So look at everyone's guessing. BBs. That's actually morph. That's a great guess. Flour, salt, clear powder paint. No, this is what I put in there. You're gonna say, "Kuda, this is dumb."
One ball bearing.
I put a toothpick in every container. And when I sit there and I open up that container, it's always there, right? So I don't have to take it out, clean it off. There's a wooden toothpick in there. And when I open up that container, I grab the toothpick, I stir it real quick, and I dip. It's all fluffed. I do a couple of jigs. I stir the toothpick. It's fluffed. I never take it out of the 2-ounce container. Is this rocket science? No, it's not. But I can tell you something. It was enough to make my life easier. And I went back to dipping out of containers because I wasn't making as many. If I was going for a really clear coat, like I said, when you do things, and I got to tell you, SDG Custom Lurecraft, he's in chat right now. If you have not been on his channel on YouTube, you got to go. And he has specific videos on powder painting and making fluid beds and some crazy cool stuff. You got to check him out. He does some really cool stuff. But I've gone back to that because I'm not making as many jigs as I would like. And here's another thing. I actually made some crazy cool fluid beds that are screw on, screw off paint cups. So you would have usually you would make 3 or 4, 5, 6 fluid beds with air traveling to them. And then you would slide them on and off. I made them where with screw on caps and really cool stuff. And I'm back to doing simple and easy. So I don't know, guys. I'm not as classy as sometimes people think the jig game is. And this is why Jig Squad exists, because there's so many cool things that I think we could do. Trippy sticks. Thanks, brother. Good idea. It's simple. It's easy. Look at all the good tips coming in. Look at Brian Tesh Brian's on Instagram too. Lots of cool stuff. End of a cheap little paintbrush to stir and use the bristles to sprinkle on a little more paint if needed. Now, listen, the whole thing about heat shrink, you're going to think that takes time. It does. If you're going to mass produce jigs, it maybe that's not the most effective way for you to make them. But for the casual guy at home and you're just custom making your own jigs, you could buy a 100-yard roll of this stuff for $10, the heat shrink tubing. Wow. And you get, like, people joked for a while, they're like, how are you getting such clean eyelets? I'm like, I'm not cleaning any eyes. SDG told me how to do this.
Has anybody used the whatever size heat shrink for whatever rattle you want? But the smallest worm rattle is really tiny. And has anybody put heat shrink tubing on the shank of your jig after it's tied, shrunk it down, and then insert a rattle?
I haven't. I can't say that I have.
I'll show you the jig that accounted for my largest Potomac bass. Check this out. Yeah, right. I mean, it's one way to get a rattle in to a really small jig. And this style jig accounted for my largest Potomac River bass in December. See the heat shrink tubing on the back of that? Hopefully I'm coming through a little clearer.
Let me pop it up a little bigger, Eric. Let me see. Let me get you in the big slot. Oh, yeah. Is it just pinched? You literally just pierced it, the heat shrink through the hook
No,
shank of the hook?
basically, what? Yeah, you do. Yes, and then you tie it on with the material, right?
Oh, it's tied in.
So,
Okay.
it's tied in, right? And then a little bit of that too. But I mean, you can still get your trailer on and just a little soft rattle. And I was using pork when I caught it. So 101, Uncle Josh, pork.
Eric, that's a good tip too. I think the thing is you just have to be willing to try some different things. Debo, so getting started with some of the stuff with painting, here's another one too, just the timing. Like when you hold it under a heat gun, some guys will use some of the alcohol candles and stuff. But when you hold it, it's all about the guy that taught me how to make jigs. He still to this day calls it the count. How long are you counting? He would count. You would hold it on the hemos. You would hold it over the heat gun, and it was all about the count.
How long do you hold it? 10, Debo, 10. Thank you. Yeah, and what 10. Do you use to heat your like when you're setting up and for you too, Kuda? Yeah. And you've got your toothpick and your powder. You fluff it up. You got your 6 jig heads that you're dipping. How long am I holding that thing, and what am I using? I've used just like a thing that I like the charcoal with, and I have no clue. I'm a rookie when it comes to it. Maybe that's why I'm getting subpar results.
I use a heat gun. I've got multiple heat guns for airbrushing, so it's. So you can just turn them upside down and they're flat, and they just sit there, and you just turn it on, and you don't have to touch it.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Okay. They get crazy hot. Yeah.
What do you do, Kuda? You use a heat gun too?
I use a heat gun, but I have to fair play here, and I got to mention a guy, and I don't know if I've seen him in chat yet, here and on some of our shows, but he's on Instagram, relatively new. This guy is an old school cat, and he makes some of the most fantastic, cool looking painted jig heads. His name is Jungle Jim Jigs, and he is on Instagram. And you if you search the Jig Squad Instagram page, you'll see some stuff. But he makes some jigs that has like this almost like tie-dyed. It's like a tie-dyed paint pattern on them. And he will tell you, like, he's commented on posts and he says, "Hey, I use a Bic lighter, and this is how to do it." But I'm going to tell you, the other guy is too. And I never have sat down with Larry Hadley, the Anglure, Anglure. He's on Instagram. He's the guy that makes those tie-dye looking jig heads on the Ultra Minnow head. You've seen me make posts of on Jig Squad. But I'm going to tell you the painting techniques that guys come up with. I just gave 2 guys on opposite ends of the spectrum. One, Jungle Jim, painting with a Bic lighter, and Larry Hadley down in Texas making crazy cool stuff. Did you see it? Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
Devo, let me make you
crazy, Devo. That's
let me make you bigger here, buddy. So people can see. Show that again, Devo.
Show it again. Oh my gosh, that's naughty. Is that big flake in there? That's crazy.
No, listen. They're one of these days.
I gotta get him on.
I have not. Listen, I'm going to tell you something, Larry.
I need to just get off this stream. You guys need to get some.
Me too.
No,
yeah, Devo, me too, man. Let's hold up some of your stuff, man. I love.
Dude, those are crazy. Look at those.
This guy is the hottest jig painter in the country. And Larry, he was in chat a little bit ago. Are you still here?
I'm raising my hand. I have a guess on how it's done.
Okay, go.
I could be completely wrong. All right. Has anybody seen the vinyl dip stuff that they put the paint in the bucket and then they dip it and it comes out? Is that how some
hydro
is done?
Hydro dipping?
It is not. And because I talked to Larry Hadley, and although, oh my God, look at my guy. Larry is here.
Uh-oh.
Here's the thing. I have been waiting.
Jump on
Larry.
The link. Let's go Foursquare right now.
Larry, no, I can't. I can't do it to him. I can't do it to him yet. I want to get
Larry in here.
I want to get Larry on the screen.
Yeah,
I want to get Larry
down here, and they get
look at my guy. Look what he just said, folks.
Powder coat.
Larry Hadley, answer in chat.
Spraying something on it. It almost
looks like all the time, Larry, that you and I have gone back and forth and kind of been friends with each other on Instagram. Have I ever asked you how exactly you do your technique?
No, I'm sure
he'll answer in chat. I'm going to tell you.
I wouldn't say.
Sorcery.
I don't know. I just dipped it in a color and it happened.
I have never asked, but I'm going to tell you something.
I was just taking a guess. I wasn't asking. I guessed.
Yeah. Look at Larry. Did you see that? Not once. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm a science of the game. I'm a science of the game. And Larry Hadley, and I'm not going to put him on the spot because in time, I would like to have Larry on the stream, right?
Sure.
But he has a very specific technique that I don't want to put out there unless he wants to have that conversation for what he makes and creates, right? Fair play.
Sure. Yeah,
but what I will tell you is, because I haven't asked Larry, I have a right to say what I think things are sometimes too. And there is a technique for using a very high amount of heat where there are certain powder paints, silver mine, gold mine, and you are doing separate paint coats for each of the colors that you would see in a jig. So if you are seeing orange, you are seeing blue, and then like red. Those are all 3 different dips that are happening in the paint. But the trick is using, I believe that it's silver mine and gold mine from ProTech. Now, there may be some other paints out there, and I'm not just saying I think it's silver mine or gold mine. It's really, I really think it's silver mine more than anything else. From ProTech and Do It. There may be something else that Larry's using, but I will tell you, Jungle Jim uses it, and he uses a Bic, and he can get some cool results. He just hasn't refined his technique as much. You got to look up Jungle Jim. I've posted jigs of him on Jig Squad, but you got to look him up. He makes some cool stuff with a Bic. And then my guy Larry bangs out all these designs. And maybe someday, maybe Larry will want to talk about this technique. I'm not sure. He's got a business to run, but he knows I love him. I really do. And what amazing art, and from a design perspective, some phenomenal stuff. So I will save that for another day. Larry, if I put you on the spot, I'll own it and eat that one. But at the end of the day, I think you are the bomb.
I'd be damn proud of that, to be put on the spot, to be honest.
Yeah,
Share the secret, I wouldn't. I'd just tell him I dipped it in like 7-Up and then the paints.
7-Up.
Trust me.
I got
the same result. Oh, you didn't? I don't know. You must have used the wrong heat. Sorry, bud.
Nice.
Larry's a good dude, and whether he gives up his exact technique or not, I would like to get him on the stream. And I'll tell you something. He's got some cool paint jobs, but this guy has the sickest. His thread wraps are some of the sickest out there. A lot of people make some good thread wraps, but Larry Hadley, and whatever he said before on one of his streams, Larry, what are you using on your to coat your threads? Because his look glassy. They look so glassy. You don't even see the thread anymore sometimes when Larry gets done dipping them up. I love it. It's like a museum when I look at his stuff.
Nice, man.
So guys, listen. So listen, that's
back to this idiot Debo.
So here we got Debo. Let's get back to us putting our toothpicks in our paint cups, Debo.
Hey, I'm just trying to make sure I get the whole head covered when I dip it in there. That's all. That's what I'm trying to make sure.
Hey, you and me both, buddy. 20 years has got me about as basic as you get when it comes to making some jigs. And I think, see, guys, that is what Jig Squad is supposed to be about. We are going to have some crazy jig makers on here in time, and we've had awesome, crazy jig makers on. But the point is, I don't want anyone ever to look at somebody else and think that they're not just as equal in the jig crafting community, right? I make jigs in my garage just like the next guy, and that's what I tell people. I'm like, you make what makes you happy, and we never have to design to appease somebody else or what somebody else says is the latest and hottest thing. And we don't have to look like Mega Bass, and we don't have to look like the whatever it is. Try different things. Try what excites you and be willing to get out of your comfort zone. And do you think that it's flow, color, or design? What is the order? Eric, should we put Debo to it a little bit?
Yeah,
what
man,
do you think of these
I
words?
can handle it. I'm thick skinned. You can
let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Big nose. I was picked on my whole life. It's fine.
Yeah, dude, but you also banged on some people in the ring a little bit. I know.
I knocked a few people around. Yeah.
Nice.
All right, so Debo. So one of the things with Jig Squad when we started this last year, right, was about, there was always a slogan. It was flow, color, and design. And to be honest with you, when I put those words together for Jig Squad, it was because those words meant something to me. And I think what happened is, through a lot of discussion over time, like everyone's always asked, like, hey, what's the order? What's most important? And there is a reason why I put flow first, right? There's flow, color, design, because that's the part that excites me the most when I'm making a jig. But I'll tell you, if you were to say what excites you the most in general, I always think color. Like I start making designs based on what type of color profile I want to make for a jig. And that came out of the saltwater world. Because if you were putting me on bass, I'd tell you I need green pumpkin, white, and black. And I don't need anything else. Maybe a chartreuse spinnerbait. But the point is, I've expanded into all these other things. Go ahead, Eric. Go ahead.
No. I just want to hear what Debo says, man. Flow, color, design. What happens in your brain first when you're attacking a jig?
I think it changes. I think you've done it so long. To me, and maybe this is the beginner part of me talking, is I've gone through those steps exactly that you're saying, but it's changed. When I first started out, I was fixed on color. Like, how do I want this to turn out? Oh, dude, if I put this with this, dude, this is going to look so awesome. And I know when I got the stuff in from Do It, I had a whole bunch of I had a chart laid out of, dude, this would look up. I've never seen a place do this. And then I started doing the stuff and I'm like, I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. I can't even get this damn thing tied. So then I had to go back to square one and look up other stuff of how people tied this with wire. So it was completely flow. Like I should have focused on flow because I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Okay.
So it kind of switched. And after I got the flow down, then it was, okay, now I can kind of go back to that color. And then after you start dealing with the colors, it's like, well, I can make 17 things that look all exactly the same, but with different colors. But how do I really start playing with these and making them different? So then it's like design is like the first thing that I would start thinking of. Like I started messing with living rubber. You know, I'd never done anything with living rubber. And I got these they look like strips of tape. I got them in a big roll. I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this?
How do these work? Right.
So then I was like popping it, pulling apart. I'm like, oh, okay, now it looks like living rubber. But I think it changes as you go on. So first I was excited about colors. And then as I went through it, I noticed that it had to be flow was the most important to get what the hell I was doing.
My man, Devo.
Now I'm at design. Like now I'm like, I want to keep making different stuff. You know, I want to try different things and like different cuts and different, so Brian's custom tackle is in here. And I totally,
my guy, Brian,
like sweet craw. I placed an order with him for ice fishing jigs a couple of years back and was blown away at the work that dude did. And he threw in a couple. Actually, I've still got them up here. I won't fish them. Hold on.
Oh, see, look at, we're going to have Brian. Hey, actually, Brian, for what it's worth, Brian's going to be on the show in a couple of weeks. So I'm just putting that out there for people so they know.
I got my SDG box here.
And SDG was on last week.
I know, right?
So Devo, are you showing these jigs? Because you get into the big slot, my man.
But so I paid for my whole order. He didn't send me everything free. You know, he sent me a couple things, which I respect. I don't order from these places to get free stuff. But he did send me in a couple for free. And this thing blew my mind. He's like, oh, I know you like the Hawkeyes, black and gold. So he's got I don't know if this is like a deer hair or a rabbit fur, what the hell it is, but it's like a craw looking jig. I don't even know how to show it on here. A craw looking jig, but he ties like rabbit fur. So you don't even technically need a trailer if you don't want. He's got deer fur in here, living rubber, threw a few of those in for free. And that blew me away that he would do that. And I'd never seen anything this cool. So I kind of stole his idea and used some feathers. Now I'm not selling them or anything. So I would never try to do that to somebody and be like, oh, look at this that I come up with. But, for my own personal use, and did some feathers and different stuff. And people coming up with this stuff, it's freaking awesome. This is what I love about tinkering with tackle is coming up with that stuff.
So one of Brian's bread and butters, and Brian will tell us this in a few weeks, but one of his favorite jigs to tie. Yeah, there's another one. That's with the boo, right? That's phenomenal. One of Brian's Brian Cole from Brian's Custom Tackle, one of his bread and butters, and he will say it himself that he loves is that craw jig, right? Which is basically, living rubber, whatever else is included, but the hallmark is those two zonker strips that are replicating the claws.
Yeah, what is this? Is that like rabbit fur or what is it?
It's called a zonker strip, which is rabbit. It's a zonker strip.
It felt like, yeah.
And so you feel how it's got that leather on the underside, Debo? Yeah, basically it's got that hide, and the flow of rabbit or zonker strips of rabbit is there are some people that will tell you they like it more than marabou, but the thing is, it's not, you're not going to get the length out of it coming off the hide as much as you are on the marabou. But I mean, in terms of claws or from a crayfish, a crawfish, whatever you say, I mean, it's awesome. It's a cool jig. And Brian loves that style. He also makes a phenomenal finesse jig as well, with limited material up front, a few strands of silicone. See, I'll tell you something. I've actually been talking, and I think last spring I did a little video for Do It when they had their little some special week that they had where they had some different videos out. And my video was about using less material to accomplish more. And the whole thing was about, you can get away with using like a tab and a half of material, or sometimes even less on a jig, even without adding on additional material, whether it be marabou, bucktail, schlappen, whatever the heck it is. You can use less material. And if you have a dedicated trailer that you want to put on that finesse jig, you're going to get more undulation in the water and more action. And this is where the flow part, and Eric, we did this on the first show, right? This is where the flow part comes for me, is that I think you could get flow out of silicone by using less material and having the opportunity for more movement. But my comparison, the flip side is, if I took a mop and stuck it in the water and moved it back and forth with a lot of material, there's going to be movement from that mop. It's just going to be different. The volume of it, the bulk of it.
Very true. Right. Right.
So it's very cool. It's like when I see these guys, Eric knows there's another guy we're going to have on in the coming weeks down the line, Deeks Jigs. I mean, the creativity of what all these designers make, and there's a lot of designers in chat right now, right? I see companies in here.
Yeah, that's the thing. I have a lot of people, that watch me, but the number of new faces and designers, people learning their own stuff, that's awesome as hell.
And it's cool.
Like, you should never be ashamed. If anybody tries running you down, those people aren't worth your time. Block them, get away from them, because any of these guys in here, Eric, you, anybody in the chat, those guys all started from ground one. So if they're too proud to admit that, or try to help people, they're just going to down. Not worth your time.
Agreed. I'm gonna pimp Debo a little bit here, you guys, because one of the things why I like Debo so much is because Debo's not a shit talker. And I don't mean that other people are. I'm making the point that Debo, and you'll see this when he does his streams, and videos are videos because they're dedicated to like the specific topic that's being talked about. But one of the things you'll always see, and I don't know if anyone's ever said this to Debo, he knows this himself. But one of the things I like about Debo is that he's not the defender of other people. But I will say this: he doesn't like when people are just talking smack. Like, it's unnecessary. He doesn't want to be a part of it. And
Agreed,
at the end of the day,
amen.
You surround yourself. And Eric, I know how you feel about this. You are who you surround yourself with. And Debo is a class dude. And I'm not saying this because he's on the stream. Debo knows. I made a comment to him before we went live tonight about what some other people said to me. And I'm not going to repeat the exact comment, but you might be able to pick up on the general gist. Some people had said to me about some comments to me about why I was having Debo on. Listen, I'm going to tell everyone. We'll get it. Let's make sure we're crystal clear. Debo's on because he's new in the jig game, and I want to hear what the man has to say, right? And how many people are going to see this on replay and be able to see a guy that has his stature in the YouTube game a little bit and hear him being the new guy? What a great concept. And so him being here,
we go right back to ego. Ego will burn you out fast.
That's exactly right.
When you're trying to learn anything new, you have to be willing to fail, because I always say, like, fail is such a bad word because of the connotation or the meaning that people put to it. But I would say fail forward, right? Every single mistake you make is a learning opportunity, and just keep going.
100%. 100%.
Anybody into it, there's always the thing of Michael Jordan. Like, I love basketball.
Chicago fan. I love you, Debo, just because of that. Yep. I'm a Chicago guy, born and raised.
Yeah.
So 4 on the floor.
See, here in Iowa, we don't have any sort of professional team, so it's like everybody around we have to cheer for.
Your surrounding space.
Yeah. But they asked Jordan, like, I forget what the question was, of how great you are because you won your championship, 6 championships or whatever. And he's like, yeah, but do you understand? I had to miss 9,000 shots. I had to miss X number of game-winning shots. People don't talk about that.
Very true.
I'm not perfect.
Very true.
You're gonna fail, so fail forward.
Man, some of the first crankbaits I tried to paint with nail polish were just absolutely horrific. I used to tie flies. I tied some ugly flies, and I actually caught a little baby trout on an ugly fly. And then I got better and better, read books. You know, there was no YouTube when I was like getting into it. But anyway, I tried to tie something that, you know, SDG inspired me. And look how horrible my skirt came out.
Hold on,
went
Eric.
forward.
Eric, I got to blow you up on this. Hold on. I got to see. Come on.
It's a Jika rig, and so I went out and bought some of those. I had some really long fly attachments for the articulated fly, so I went and got some short ones, and this is a really short one. And I'm like, I can do it. I didn't do it, but you know, my second try got better, and then I had it on wrong, so I had to put 2 split rings on. So still not exactly what I wanted, but you know, I wanted to tie it on my favorite hook, which is the owner cover shot. It's a great hook, and this is a missile baits destroyer. I could put any plastic on the backside of it, but SDG was the guy that inspired me. So I'm still trying, and it doesn't look great, but it's coming together. So thank you, SDG, for the inspiration.
How about that, Eric? I mean,
but the first one was laughable. Laughable. Look at that. It's like it's going forward. I'm like, no, I didn't want that.
the ability to inspire each other, you know, like I guys, I'm going to keep going back to this when we go on the shows, you know, like as the shows go on, you guys will learn more and more just about you'll see whether I say the same things over and over again, or whether I tell a new story every time. This is all about what people want to make of it. You know, I tell people all the time, I am an educator. And when I say that, I'm not an educator at Jigs. I work in the field of education, right? Yeah. I am not leaving my day job. I love working with kids. I work with high school kids. And the thing is, I just believe in being honest and straightforward. And I do come with experience. I do come with a lot of designs that I've held back and haven't put out there, but you know, that's my goal. It's crazy that my goal was to put more of my designs out there and then turn around and start a YouTube page, because I don't know how that's going to work out. but you know,
it starts now, man.
It's about finding balance. And I only have one goal. I only have one goal. I just want to have other people that have a community of jig makers that we're able to sit there and hang out and BS. And it's just about jigs. And you know, like I was blown away last week. You know, like everyone I get to talk to about fishing is cool, right? But Brian Schmidt last week, guys, this cat used to pick the flies for Umpqua. This guy picked the flies that got sold around the country. He is the real deal, you know, and he was as down to earth as you get. And here we are. We got Debo. Why is Debo here? Because he makes jigs. That's why he's here. And
good. It's not because I'm good.
He's telling you all these little secrets though about how he's got this wacky mold now and he's going to have some fun. But I'll tell you what, Debo, if I had one wish for you in 2022, my man, it's that you find your love of the art of crafting and give yourself more time to do it. And because you're awesome, dude. The airbrush painting video you did a few weeks ago, guess what? Guess who just got the whole line of bait blast? Because I finally bought my compressor. I already had the airbrush and I bought it. There's about 150 crank plates sitting downstairs from the Vision 110 style to the square bills to top water to rattle trap style. I got them all, but I just want to paint some jigs. That's all I want to do.
I accept no responsibility in your purchases.
So I have a question for you, Mr. Airbrush guy. Tell me this. I want to know, and this is for me, and we'll see if anyone in chat wants to know this too, but for me, I want to know what are some of the stencils that I should be looking at getting. Look at Brennan Chapman, my boy. Hold on, let me throw that up there. I got to throw it up. He knows what I do. He knows what I do.
I wouldn't trust that guy.
I definitely wouldn't trust that guy.
I wouldn't trust that.
Never. Guy. So Debo, I need some help. So if I want to airbrush some of my jigs, right, and I want to get a cool two-tone, like I have an idea of what I have to do and learn in my spray techniques. But if I want to get any type of stenciled texture on there, where should I be? Where should I be starting off with some home products, or are there some stencils I should be looking to buy? Where do I start with some stencils? and I don't care if it's for making cranks or for jigs. I think there's some crossover. It's obviously a smaller platform that I'm using on a jig head. But what should I be using for some of the stencils for airbrushing?
Yeah, I haven't played with airbrushing jigs yet. It's crossed my mind, but I guess I'm tinkering so much with like downstairs here with my crankbait stuff. Like I said, the thing with the jig stuff is I just want to make sure I've got the whole thing coated and it looks okay, right? So the powder paint thing is like it's whole new different, like a whole new, like I noticed people were talking about the paintbrush and like dropping other paints on top to get the two-tone. Like I've just barely started messing with any of that because I'm kind of weird. I'm kind of backwards. Like I like to tackle a project with no help from anybody and like fail and try and then like get to a point where I'm like, I think I'm kind of stuck and then look for help. I find it more rewarding that way because you never know, coming from like an angle of never doing it before, you might just like stumble on something. That's one thing I learned from MMA is whoever steps in the gym, doesn't matter who it is, they've always got something to teach you. Doesn't matter. Never be too
fair play.
So I did see somebody posted, because funny enough, Brennan and I were just talking about this the other day. Fishing the 262 Anarchy Models creature feature is a must own. So Anarchy Models, I've got a number of theirs. They're awesome. They're small little, I don't know, maybe like 4x6 or 3x5 little stencils. A number of different like small textures and stuff you can add, from like little tiny dots to almost that crappie pattern to like half scales that almost look like broke up like scales like you'd see on a shad, like after it gets, part of those scales ripped off. I've got some stuff from Amazon. It's not the best stuff, but I've got a couple like random ones from there.
So Debo, here's a question. So one of the techniques that you use when you're airbrushing, right, is to wrap it with that scaling, right? And you're using clips to put it tight around a crankbait. And basically, for anyone in chat, like this is like or in replay, this is kind of like some type of mesh, some type of squared pattern.
Yep. Actually, I was just talking to another person about that I shared, because nobody can ever find it. And I'm like, dude, all you have to look up is this. And then I went to find it, and it took me like 20 some minutes to find it. It was Fishing the Southeast. I'm surprised he's not in here.
Really? So it's something like that. But my thought is, like, I would like to have something like that.
What about the replacement screen door stuff?
That's a good idea.
You can go to Home Depot and get a little mesh screen. They also sell, and I have a piece because my cat scratched like a hole in the screen, small. And so they have these little squares that they sell, which are actually perfect
repair patches.
Repair patches, man.
Good idea.
You shoot through that. Yeah, man.
Because I want to like the scale. You're talking the scale pattern.
Scale, so right? Correct.
Yep. I was asked about when you do. I should have got some. I have none of that over here, but got some rock and roll going. When I get asked about the random mesh, so when you do like the crackle pattern, this is the random tool, or tool, I believe it's called. But this design here that people always ask about, and they're like, I can never find it. I'm like, I was just telling them, just go search random mesh. But like that pattern there, where it looks like a crackly explosion.
Okay.
You can get 50 yards of it. It's 6-inch. Let me see.
Crackle mesh. What the hell is crackle mesh used for?
Those are the ones that create that little design on the cranks that look like
you mean that's
lava, volcanoes, lightning, something like that.
That's sold to painters. I got it. I thought you were like finding some mesh used for like another application. I'm sorry.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's like craft stuff. It's like what here says here. Fabric, crafting fabric, DIY, wedding bouquet, birthday party decoration.
All right, fishing the 262 just said the bags that clementines, my favorite winter fruit, come in are a good bigger scale pattern. There you go, man. There you go, fishing the 262. Yeah, man.
So awesome. If anybody's looking for that random stuff, just look up 6-inch tool random mesh. And it took me forever to find that, but I should have grabbed some. Do I have? Actually, I might. Hold on. I've got a. If I can get it without knocking everything over, I've got a bag or a box of random cranks here.
Oh, Debo, in theory, like one of my thinking is.
Did you say crankbait, Debo?
I know. Hold on.
Yeah, no, this is good because that's the pattern that you get off of that. Yeah, now I want that on a jig.
Oh, that's my delicious!
Man. Oh my cool, deliciousness! Man, I like it. Look
this was like
at
one of
that.
the first ones I did. I had no idea what I was doing, and it looks
Oh,
like
I love when you don't know what you're doing.
This was another cool one. This is like, it shows how you can layer all those different colors under there and then cover it and spray over it and get all these cool kind of different looks. It's not real hard to do. It looks a lot crazier than it is.
That's the effect that I want to put on a jig. I genuinely think that's a solid pattern. Because you know what the thing is, the jig head is so small. Like you can only get so much down in terms of what you want to do. So something like that crinkle pattern is one I want to do. I do want to do the mesh scaling, but what I don't want to do is I don't want to have to wrap the whole jig head almost like you would do with the crankbaits. I literally want, like Eric suggested, I want to hold up the little screening and just give it a shoot, and just like the top half of the jig, like smaller amounts. It's so small, so it's like everything's got to be scaled
can do
down.
that, actually. You can do that with the crinkle stuff. If you get, I believe it's called cross stitching.
Okay,
is what they call it, where you get like these round wooden things, and it's like two pieces of wooden deal. I can grab it, but it's like a round wooden thing, and then you can, like, for my flatter crankbaits, if you're just doing like a quick spray pattern, you just put that over it and hold it, and you can just do and then flip the bait around and
okay,
and you're done.
Boom,
done.
You know
I mean, with a little jig like that, you could just put it over it and twist it on the bottom, like twist that tulle fabric, and it's going to pull all that real tight. Like, imagine putting like a ball in there and twisting that fabric. It's going to make it all tight, and you would be able to just, and I would say leave the bottom empty. I don't know that I have a jig here. So
if you do that and put that on there, Debo, and you hit it with the airbrush paint, right? How long do you have to leave it on there? Because you made a mention earlier, and I think this would be a good tip for anyone who's not using airbrushes or anything like that. You have heat guns. So because it's only a fine, smaller size jig head, how long do you have to wait before you take that crinkle off if you're going to just do a 1 or 2 coat dusting?
Yeah, it kind of depends on what you're doing. So normally when you do that, so let's say you're doing a jig like this. Let's say you want to do like a lava color. So you spray this whole jig head red, right? Oops, try to get my camera. Let's say you sprayed this whole thing red. You take your heat gun and go over it. Like you said, it's so thin, it dries in, 10 seconds.
Quick.
If you do a light coat. Yeah. If you glob it on, it takes way longer, but if you do it in light coats, and then you would put your mesh on, wrap it tight underneath, because you're gonna knock off the bottom part first, right? Drag it on rock. So I would twist it down here, because you don't really care what the bottom of it looks like.
Okay.
And really, it's just a quick, like after you wrap it, a quick white layer, and then hit that with a heat gun to make it whatever color you're putting on brighter. And then put your color on top, and it's,
that might be a good tip.
Fine. Yeah, you don't.
So if you're going to go with a lighter color, you always want to dust it probably with white then first, like a primer.
It depends what color you're going over, but whatever color you're putting on over that. So let's say you're going with like a lava craw. If you put red on here, any color you put over the top of that, if you want it to pop, you've got to go with a white first. Otherwise, it's
very good tip,
and it'll like blend together. So
see, I didn't think you didn't think that I'd connect your airbrushing with jigs tonight, did you?
Yeah. Now that you've said, it's funny because remember I said the ADHD / anxiety. Now I'm like really anxious to go out in the garage and try messing with painting these. Since you brought this up, you've planted that seed now. So
nice.
I would say look in the comment, because I've actually got a few. I think I've got a few jig heads, because when I do it, it's a weird thing, because I finally got my dad into making soft plastics with me. We were making some some new molds. And we were making ice fishing plastics, which worked really well, and Dad was excited. But like once you get into it, you want to keep doing it, So you start making these jigs, and it's like you can't just make 4. It's like, shoot, I've got 100 pack of hooks here. I'm going to shoot like 30, 40.
Keep going. That's right, man.
Keep going. It's like you're getting this rhythm, this flow, right? And
yeah.
Like, okay, I've got it down. So
that's awesome, man. It's, what the thing is, and I've gone back and forth, Debo, so many times, and it's like there's so many. Here's the thing: we probably come up with thousands of ideas in our heads, but what we actually follow up with by the time we get around to doing it, it's not always. We may be so far down the line of what we're going to use, but a lot of people will tell you that, like, hey, it's not worth painting those jigs. But the reality is, if this wasn't worth it, I'd just be buying all this stuff, right? I do this because this allows me to get back into the art end of all this in my whole experience. You know, like I said, I came from an artistic background. My mom was an art teacher. I have 2 sisters in the design world. And just, I love it. And the thing is, it's therapeutic for me, to be able to craft and design things. But at the end of the day, here's the example. I have the jig hanging downstairs. It's a freestyle jig out of the freestyle jig mold from Do It Molds. And it has a 4-aught Gamakatsu in it, 604, that I used. And I caught so many fish on this thing down in Florida. It caught my first landed tarpon, mangrove snapper, snook, just on and on and on. And at the end of the week, I used it so many times. I took it off. I used other things, but my eye fell off finally. But I took that jig and I hung it up, and it still didn't look that ugly. But I will tell you something. If you want to make something cool and it's something special and you think that you're going to use it, when you make skirted jigs or hair jigs or whatever it is, you put time into it. I always say I could get by if I'm throwing plastics, not painting a jig head. A ball head jig that I would use on the Great Lakes for smallmouth as an example, or in the river. But when I put skirts on it or material,
like that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't need them to be colored, but I will say this. When I put other stuff on them, I want them to look the part. You know, it's like wearing a shirt and tie with shorts. You know, you gotta dress it up a little bit.
I think it goes.
Hey, so somebody, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, you go. Love, because you said love. You get to go with love in the sentence. Love wins.
I was just going to say, I love your face up there. You're a handsome man. Go ahead. You go. That's all I was going to say.
Somebody asked, so what's the must-read things or neat things to get started with an airbrush? I think at some point you got to actually, you got to talk about that, right? Because you guys have been talking about a lot of airbrushing recently. So I know that's off topic on the jig thing, but you're talking about airbrushing your jig heads, kind of on topic. So, and you just got it, Kuda. Your whole airbrush package, right?
I
Debo,
did.
You've been doing it for a while.
Goldfish
So you're
in my area.
You're the newest, right? Kuda and Debo, you've been doing it for a while. So what would you recommend for somebody just getting started?
Well, I think you're talking about Trippy's comment there.
Yep.
He said, I want
Correct.
He or she, I want to try painting some underspin and spinnerbait heads. I don't know on that stuff. I was actually just going on do it because they're awesome people and support me, and to see if they have anything that's like a clear coat powder dip.
They do. They do.
So that was my next question, because
Boom.
So when you clear coat a crankbait, you have to be very careful about what clear coats you use, because they can either bleed, they can yellow, like the colors can seep into the clear coat and it'll yellow them. So like a 2-part epoxy, like a 30-minute epoxy or KBS is what I use. There's guys that use like what is it, True Coat or whatever the UV is. Is it True Coat?
Yeah.
I want to say True Coat.
I think it might be
yet, but there's like UV. But that was my only thing, is like that stuff's kind of globby, so like I don't see that working as well for a jig, because the thing that's awesome about jigs is you can't just airbrush something and then not cover it up. So like imagine if most people in here, I think, have probably messed with the Protect paint, the dip stuff. You have to bake it to harden it, right? So if you airbrush over it, to me, you'd want some sort of hardening dip over it so you can dip it and then harden it, because that's a whole different thing from like clear coating a crankbait.
So here's a question, Debo. Could you airbrush and put Sally's over it? Trippy, that's what I'm going to do.
That's what
That's
I do.
the honest to God truth. I even,
because it's
Debo,
epoxy. I mean, it's acrylic. Sorry, hard as nails. Sally Hansen.
Sally
Hansen, hard as nails.
It's Sally Hansen's hard as nails, nail polish. So Debo, I'll give you an example. So instead of baking my jigs, which is sometimes I do, but more times than not now, I don't even bake my jigs. So I heat my jig. Yes, I heat my jig. And there's going to be people that say, Kuda doesn't know what he's talking about. Yes, I do. I absolutely do. I heat my jig.
Kuda.
I heat my jig and I dip it. And after I'm done dipping it, I go back and I will do an extra. Sometimes I'll go 20 seconds over the heat gun, turning it. That functions it's not as long as baking it in the oven, but it's a high heat and it's more intense than you're going to get in the oven. But it's a high heat. You are putting the heat on that thing, and I'll tell you what. Sometimes I can fish them like that, but I don't do it. I take my Sally Hansen's, then the clear nail polish, and every jig I take it and I slather the whole head with Sally Hansen's and I hang it to dry. And I don't even
do you use the extreme Sally
I
Hansen
use the
hardest nails?
I use the extreme now, and the reason is because I couldn't find the old school regular one. But Debo, basically, it's you go to Walgreens and it's basically the clear nail polish from Sally Hansen's. And here's another tip for you. I actually use it almost exclusively now for over my threads when I'm tying in other materials. So
I haven't really got into thread tying. I'm still a wire guy on my jigs. I've not.
You are wiring, okay?
Stuff. I'm wire. Yep.
See, Devo, now that's a whole crankbait painted with Sally Hansen and clear coated.
Hold on, Eric. Let me put you up there again, my man.
So I would assume it's like the same thing as like a 2-part epoxy type thing.
Similar.
No, it's just acrylic. That's all it is, man.
It is acrylic, but fit and function for what it does for you.
That's
awesome.
Yeah, like
similar.
As far as clear coat.
Yeah.
Because so like my thing with baking the jigs, I like it. So going back to flow is once I'm done dipping them, then I can rip my earbuds out. I can walk away and I'm done, right? I just put them in there and I'm done. So like from a time perspective, I could see that maybe being beneficial, but I would see your point of, because as soon as you clear coat a crankbait, and I'm guessing the nail polish does the same thing to jigs, anything that has like any sort of detail or any sort of flake, it adds like a 3D texture to it. So as soon as you clear coat a crankbait, it lifts
pops
everything to a third dimension.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So
now here's the thing. One thing that Sally Hansen's will do is it will bleed. There is a slight bleed. Let's be fair. There is a slight bleed of color on Sally Hansen's if you hit it with more than one stroke.
Yeah, not if it's dry.
If it's dry, but I will tell you with powder paint though, Eric.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. If I paint a jig, powder paint it white, and I don't bake it, and that could be part of it. So if I Sally Hansen after, I don't know. I mean, I could do it that way too. But if I powder paint a jig white, I heat it up, let it cool, and then or let's say I'm doing a two-tone and I'm doing the tap method with like a let's call it an orange on top, right? If you take Sally Hansen's afterward, right, and you run that Sally Hansen's over the top, and if I do it a couple of times with a couple of strokes, it will bleed that color and smooth it out even a little more clear. So the point I'm making is that if you don't want it to bleed, you can't hit it multiple times. You hit it once, and that brush, the chemical reaction from the powder paint and the Sally Hansen's will change the color composition of how that flows together. So it's just something to play around. Let's see. What's Brian say? Isn't True Coat from the movie Fargo? Oh, oops. John Mango, what's up, buddy? How are you? Welcome.
Hey, he's in the house.
So guys, listen, there's a lot of different techniques, right? So it doesn't, don't get me wrong. If I was selling jigs, I would probably have a different answer with how I would do this, right? If I was selling jigs, I don't think there'd be any chance that I would not be baking the jigs, but I'm not.
That's the thing too.
You are.
I feel like it's a whole different game when you're making jigs to sell, because you're looking at quantity and time per piece versus being a nerd and trying different stuff. I've even noticed that with crankbait stuff. I opened up my own crankbait business and I can't keep up. Like for me, it's just fun. I don't take orders. I can't do any of that stuff because I paint what I can and then throw them up there for people to enjoy.
Sure.
And I know earlier we were talking about, like purchasing custom lures and stuff. And it's a whole different game. Like it's not like these just happen in a couple minutes. Like you said, you're putting your time, your effort, all that type of stuff into it. So it's kind of a whole different deal.
So Goldfinch says, and then I had to go back. I wanted to make sure I highlighted it because then Brennan Chapman jumped in and said spot on. So like now I know that Goldfinch has got this right? He says powder paint white, bake it, okay, airbrush your acrylic, then finish with a brushed on 2-part resin. So that becomes maybe probably the ultimate technique. And for what it's worth, guys,
that's a great point. And for beginners, so I'm going to jump in because this is something that I've wanted solved. So going back
Yes.
to crankbait painting, so I've started tinkering, you know, like I said, I just want to make sure they were all covered. After I got past that, I started messing with the brush and like two-tones and stuff. So one thing I started getting into was doing a white coat first to make those colors pop. But after I did the white coat, I noticed when I started messing around with some of the other stuff and I hung them into their bake, it had like a little unicorn horn that would sag. I guess I had too much paint on it. Like a little bump, like a little hump. So how do you fix that? Maybe there's other big beginners that can.
So there are actually, you can buy them from different places, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know, I can't say that they're on the Do It site, but I do know that ProTech or CS Coatings, if you go on their website, they'll even show you some. Basically, it's a railed system. Imagine two pieces of metal, clamped together, and with like screws on the end, and you would stand the jigs up vertically with the jig head up top and the jig hook down, and basically when it will drip because of the heating so you literally put them on the tray in the toaster oven, and then if it's going to drip, it's going to drip down towards the shank and hook as opposed to the tip. So it's
never actually dripped. I didn't know if I was doing too much of, because like you said, I was stirring the powder paint. That's one thing I heard from people.
If you double dip, you will be prone to get some of that dripping. It's just basically it's the thickness of the paint application.
That's what I figured. Yeah, I just didn't know if there was a way to compensate for that, if there was something you could add between layers, or
you have to definitely fluff that paint even on one-time applications. Like you have to, that's why I leave the toothpick in, you know. I literally stir every dip. I tell people I stir every couple of dips, but if I'm making them for myself, I'm stirring every dip. Why not? Because the more air that's introduced to the paint, the thinner the coating is going to be when you dip it. And the technique for dipping is important too. There's some guys that are the plungers, you know, they stick it in and pull it out, but it's got to be like I do, or I do a little, you know, I do one of these, because if it's light and it's not 100% covered, you know what I'll do? I'll hold it back over the heat gun and I'll take my little paintbrush and I'll dip that in, and I might finish it off with that paintbrush so I don't get a double dipping is fine, but double dipping makes the coating extremely thick. You can wind up with a headache with that. So if I know I missed the little spot, what I'll do rather than double dip is I'll take a paintbrush and I'll dab it. So that's just me, you know. But it is, I kind of like some of these other techniques. I think Hellabass, thanks, buddy. I'm going to play around with some of these other techniques, because it's just, there's a lot of different ways to do this and accomplish similar things. And hey, listen, here's a great comment too. Brian's Custom Tackle, Brian Cole, and certain colors are easier than others too.
I've noticed that. Yeah. Some colors want to sag way more than others. I can double dip and have zero issues ever.
This is true. And a lot of it has to do with, and that has to do with the pigments, right? So basically what that colored pigment is ultimately made out of, to create things. Like here, I'll make a comparable to if you're a t-shirt person, right? If you go and buy t-shirts, you can buy, I'll give you an example. I like buying white t-shirts from Cheapest Tees. I wear them underneath dress shirts, whatever, right? So, but if you go and pick another color, the same exact branded shirt, that different colored shirt is going to have a different feel and texture to it, because of the pigment composition. So if you compare that, I don't know why I'm talking about t-shirts, but yet the kinds we got airbrush.
I get where you're going.
But it's textures, the same concept. Pigments have different weights to them. Different colored pigments have different weights to them, is what it is. And so it changes it. You know, Brian says white's the worst. Brian, I personally have most problem with black. That's the color that I have the most problem with. But that's just me. You know, hey, everyone's got a few different techniques. So
right on.
I'm never too proud to learn, so I appreciate it.
So, Debo, you gave me a couple of good ideas for starting off. I mean, I know it's like a small platform to try and airbrush some of these jig heads, but I definitely want to try it. You know, I'm interested in making some cool stuff. We're going to have to compare notes. And I know that I'm going to give credit to Eric on the Wacky rig.
You gotta post your first jig head that you airbrush, no matter what it looks like. Promise
I
everybody
will.
tonight.
I will.
If it's great, you nail it. Great. If it's horrible, we gotta see it. I want to see it on your IG, right in the middle of all these beautiful things you're doing. I want to see this. I hope it's pretty. Actually, I hope it's ugly as hell.
On all things Jig Squad, I will post my first jig I airbrush.
And we want to see it. When is it going to happen? Make the date.
I don't know.
No. Time out.
No, I got a couple other obligations I got to take care of here in the next week. To be honest with you, I got to do a molds obligation. I got to put some time in to finish.
That's fine.
I'm halfway done.
You're off the hook next week. You got to make a commitment. Get a firm date. Let's go. You can make it way far out and beat the deadline. What's your deadline for your first airbrush jig head? Go.
2023.
Oh my God! Come on,
I don't know.
Come on, man.
I don't know. I don't know.
Cuda.
I don't
know.
By
June?
Man.
Can you do it before June?
Oh, for sure by June, dude.
All right, May.
Yes.
We're just gonna work backwards.
Before May. Before April. It'll be done by the end of May. End of March.
Okay, gotcha. End of March.
Because I'm on spring break the last week of March, and I know no matter what, I'm going to have time to.
You're getting that airbrush out. Okay,
it's going to get done.
All right, that's exciting. We get to stay first.
I will, and but I got to tell you, you have to understand. By the time that paint hits that jig, do you realize how many pieces of paper that paint and flow technique is going to go over before I finally sit there and blast it? I actually, you know what the big thing is with me with the airbrushing is that I don't want to airbrush in my basement. I don't know why, because I don't have an exhaust like little system.
I would neither, dude. I would not. If you don't have exhaust, don't do it.
Where are you going to do it?
This is the stuff that scares me. So
where are you going to do it?
And I can't really show you because I took it down
in the garage when it gets warmer.
Yeah, that window right there. I actually built.
You built the exhaust booth.
I built an exhaust. So like in my window, I've just got a piece of like 1/4-inch plywood that goes in that window right there. I just bring up the window, 10 inches or whatever, put that board in there, and then it's just like your regular like dryer hose or whatever that hooks up to the back of my vent booth and runs that all at that. But I never realized, because like for the first month I didn't have a vent booth and didn't, it was just spraying. And I couldn't really see how much, stuff was going around, but it's around the corner over here is where my paint booth is. And after I got that all set up with lighting, the amount of stuff that comes back and like is in the air is insane.
Are you kidding me? That's crazy.
Even with airbrush, even though it's a water-based paint, it's not, like a super hard acrylic, like spray can aerosol.
Has that changed? Has that changed when you made the booth with the exhaust pipe running out the window?
Yeah, drastic. Okay. Difference. And I still wear a full face, like the face shield with respirator deal. I don't mess around with any of that. I'm
okay. Good to know.
I'd rather be too safe than. And some people might say, "Oh, that's stupid. You don't need all that." But I don't want to get kicked in the balls, 20 years down the road and be like, "Man, I wish I would have just wore a respirator." It doesn't.
I know.
Sure, I understand.
And my eyes, like I get really bad eye allergies anyway, like just regular pollen stuff.
Sure.
And the paint was like messing with my eyes for that month.
Oh, wow.
Because I just wore like a regular face respirator, with the deals here.
Yeah.
So I just wear a full face deal now. It looks like I'm ready to go into Mars or something. But
that's awesome.
Debo, what jig molds did you start off with? So the molds that you have that you are making some jigs, some weedless ones. What's your bread and butter right now that you like the most?
Ball-headed finesse jig for sure. So my buddy Randizzle is a jig lover. He's got about 18 million jigs. He probably owns 60% of War Eagle heavy finesse jigs. That dude has truckloads of loves those type of finesse jigs. And I would flip a jig around, brush and timber and stuff. I have I should have brought my old jig box from when I was younger, because my dad always fished a worm, tequila sunrise worm. That was his thing.
Oh man.
I found some jigs where you tie the jig head, they had like a screw in here instead of a weed guard. And then you screw your soft plastic into that and make it weedless. And as a kid, I loved that because I couldn't get it hung up. I learned to fish a jig that way, and I fished those for a long time. Then when I started to get more comfortable with the Texas rig, I kind of moved away from jigs and really only swam a jig, like a swim jig.
Okay.
Before swim jigs were cool. It was just like an arky head, just swimming it, casting it, and retrieving it like a spinnerbait. And then my buddy ran Dizzle probably 7 years ago or 8 years ago when we finally met up, because we used to go together with college and we worked together, and that's been like a long time ago. And then he moved, and funny enough, you know how people kind of come back in your life, and I found out he was a big bass fisherman. And at the time I had hurt my neck really, really bad in MMA, and it was either I need to get really big surgery or I stop. And that was my point. I had 2 daughters at that time, and I'm like, listen, I'm never going to become a UFC pro. I'm done with it. And then I got back into fishing really hard. But sorry, roundabout into that story is he is so confident with a ball-headed jig. He would take that tight on anywhere, a finesse jig just like this, and for sure bet you hundreds of dollars he'll catch a fish.
Vertical or horizontal tie on that, Debo? Vertical or
you know that whatever the War Eagle jig is, that's his favorite. This is a horizontal. I've got War Eagles up there. I have to look, but
no, I know the mold you're talking about. I have that mold
I think
too,
it's.
I love it.
I think it's a cross eye. It's a cross eye. It's not
cross eye.
Vertical.
Cross eye.
It's a cross eye. Yeah. I want to hold up a little jig that I found, and I'm just going to show it because
I think it is. Yeah, you're right. It's a horizontal.
Yeah.
When you load the hook, it's a horizontal hook. Yep.
So this is a Deeks jig. Never heard about it. And it's a custom Gamakatsu hook with an O'Shaughnessy bend. And look at the double keeper. I don't know if you guys can see because I know I'm so blurry tonight, but I'm going to show sparsely tied. This is a wild color. I got this for smallmouth fishing. I'm going to try to show the double barb keeper on the back end, but I don't know if you guys can see that, but this might be one of my favorite builds. Oh, I'm looking terrible, dude. This is horrible. Sorry, everybody, but whatever. Anyway,
we can hear you good.
I know. What can I do, man? I just had to show it. So sorry.
So, but Sean. So here's the thing. The key thing's there, right?
O'Shaughnessy, baby.
Oh my God,
and
what is this guy doing in chat? I can't understand. I don't know what he's saying. So the O'Shaughnessy bend is the new hot thing, right? Well, I shouldn't say it's the new hot thing. Ben Noack was on talking about it a week plus back, and sorry, buddy. I don't speak Arabic. Hopefully you can understand me though, my man. The O'Shaughnessy bend is the hot thing and cool thing about that is that you know, we were talking before the show, and I told Eric, I go, that's so great because like the saltwater guys, they absolutely love it. And like Ben Noack was talking about, right, Eric? He was saying that he likes tying his hair jigs with the O'Shaughnessy bend. And the whole, and I don't think I described this the best, but the reality is when there's less of a sweeping roundness to the bend, there's less movement possibility when that fish is hooked in its mouth.
100%. It pins them and keeps them held.
Yes.
What's that jig head from Do It that starts with an S? Sparky.
The Sparky. See, that's the one question, I just got.
So does the Sparky jig head mold from Do It accept an O'Shaughnessy style hook?
Yes.
Awesome. I need some Sparky jig head.
And I'm going to tell you, another thing. It also accepts the tinned saltwater hooks, like the one. I mean, the classic is the Eagle Claw 113s, but also Victory now has, I forgot their exact number. It ends, I think, in 113. But Victory also has the tinned O'Shaughnessy hooks as well. So those are the ones that I'm going to be making up. I bought the Sparky mold I didn't buy the weedless version. I bought it to tie bucktails for fish in the beaches for saltwater, specifically with a saltwater hook, with that tinned hook, O'Shaughnessy bend. Now I think I showed, what was it, maybe last week, that I got the weedless version of the Sparky head, which is basically a modified version of an Arky head. Okay. But I got the weedless version and I'm going to tie some bass stuff up with it. So I'm kind of excited to use it. But it will take a O'Shaughnessy bend. And you know, Eric, for what it's worth, you got a guy who knows how to adjust some molds, and I can make any hook you want.
Okay, guys.
Basically fit.
The reason I ask is Frank he was on Bass Talk Live with Matt Pangrek, and he was talking about the Sparky head in particular, how it's a really great style head with an O'Shaughnessy hook. I can't remember the model. Mustad. Don't know if it was a Gamakatsu. I think it was a Mustad. He gave the number.
Hanger was talking about this.
Yeah, no, Frank Scalish was talking about
Frank
the Sparky
was,
jig
okay.
head, in particular, pouring it, modifying the hook to accept this O'Shaughnessy style bend in it, but as a really great early season technique in grass in particular. And
Okay.
in the so early season or late season, whichever you look at, but just crispy grass, but love the Sparky style head. For catching early season bass. Great little segment. But and that's why I asked. He mentioned do it. And I remember you saying that, like, I think you just
A
got
couple
that
weeks back, right?
that Sparky head right. And so I wanted to know if anybody on the stream has poured that jig head. If they have, are they pouring it with an O'Shaughnessy style bend? Which hook model, and manufacturer are they using? And Debo, is that something you have? Do you have the Sparky mold yet from Do It as a new jig maker? Man,
No,
do
I
you have
wanted
grass
to.
out in your lakes? Do you have grass out in your lakes?
Tons of grass
Okay.
lakes. Yep.
Man, you got to listen to that. And if you're pouring jigs, you must pour that jig. You must throw it the way Frank did. This is a light line technique, 8-pound test. This is Jig Squad stuff, in my opinion. You're talking a Do It mold. You're talking an O'Shaughnessy style hook. You're talking light line, 8-pound test. Don't get a crazy idea. You got to go out there and throw it 15. Won't work. You're not going to get bit. He was super specific. So tune into that Bass Talk Live. Go, all the Do It guys out there, get yourself a Sparky jig head mold and go to work. Because I'm telling you, it's one of the most impressive techniques that, Gamma 111. Jeff, thank you. I looked at the 111 as he was talking about it. Now, I'm no jig maker, so now I need somebody that's actually got the mold. Look at the hook and tell me if that's the right one. So
I have every hook known to man, I think, and I'll play around, Eric, and be able to. That's it.
Then I got a quiz for Debo.
Is that Sparky?
Yeah, there you go.
List there, Debo?
Yeah, the Sparky. Yeah, I've never used this, but yeah, so it's almost like a rounded
modified arky.
It is right. Yeah, it's like a modified arky.
Yeah. Yep, and he's using it with a beaver style bait. So I got a question for Debo.
So that's funny because that's what we had luck on here. So talk about people doing things not according.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Your arky jig. No. What's the non-standard thing you're doing around there?
So I was going to say, so these are the ball-headed jigs that I was talking about. My buddy Randizzle throws. I wanted to be able to make one of these because they even say in the mold, this is a pretty light wire hook. Like it's a finesse jig, and I get that. But I think the War Eagle is the exact same mold with a heavier hook, and I wanted to make one with a heavier hook. However, funny enough that you're saying, my buddy Randy was throwing on 10-pound line this exact same thing in the grass, like almost swim popping it through there, and destroyed me one day. I'm like, what do you mean you're throwing a ball-headed jig in the grass? And he's
in the grass, right?
Yeah, and he was out fishing me like 6-1. Stupid.
Isn't that crazy?
So it's funny that you say that. Like, who would ever think of throwing this? Like, this is not your structure for grass. But,
right.
Kick me in the teeth that day.
So Debo, I got to ask you, since you're new to jig making, we talked, and you got some of my shaky jig worms. And I got to know, did you ever catch any fish on my shaky jig worms?
Dude, I haven't got to fish them yet. I haven't fished
them. Oh my gosh!
I know. It's one of those things where they're too damn cool that I don't want to. I'm kind of a hoarder.
Oh no!
Hold on, I've even got them in their own special.
I sent him some shaky jig worms. He reached out to me. I reached out to him. I don't remember. And we started talking about it. And he's like, I want to order those up. I sent the box, and my cat had sunk her teeth into the box. And I wrote him a note going, my cat did that. It was, yeah.
Classic.
He said, my cat. So I'm kind of a hoarder when it comes to some things that are too cool. Okay. This one I just really appreciated because I didn't see Eric selling these. He did a handwritten note. And some of this stuff like means stuff to me. Like that was cool that he took the time to do that. And I'm just some guy. So when he sent them to me, I was like, dude, these things are freaking sweet. So if y'all haven't seen Eric, I don't know if you're selling these or not, but
I sold like 36 sets of them and I was done. I couldn't do it anymore, man.
Dude, that's what I mean. So again, we go into the whole production thing versus doing it for fun. I'm absolutely into doing this like to tinker for my own stuff. But if you had to do this for a day job, dude, you have to pump out so many.
You do, man. You do. That was the purple UV, man. That thing is sexy. Purple rain, baby.
Dude, purple black is so underrated in the Midwest. It's true. Ridiculous that people don't throw it.
If anyone's looking, for
the perch.
if you're looking for jigs like this, guys, Eric doesn't have these out all the time, right? But there's two other people, and both are in the room.
I'm not doing anything like that anymore. I'm done.
Brian's Custom Tackle. Brian's Custom Tackle makes jigs like this, and then also Brian Schmidt, who's in chat as well.
Look,
they both make killer jigs, guys, and they're just like this that you're seeing on screen by Debo. You can chase down Brian's Custom Tackle at search him on Google. He's got his own webpage, and then if you're looking for Brian Schmidt stuff, you could chase down his jigs on Tackle Warehouse, actually, for very similar styled finesse jigs, hybrid.
Yeah. Little different hook, just FYI. That's a pretty stout hook in that. That's I won't tell the head I tied on because I'm actually trying to get somebody to make it for me. So to be fair, and it's a little beefier than the Ned.
Are you going to change the head, Eric? If you get somebody,
I think that's what you're referring to is his Ned dread, right? For
Brian Schmidt, it's his Ned dread. I don't know what Brian Cole calls his.
Right. This was my original, just like, mincy version. It's just a shaky jig with some skirt material on the front. And it worked really well for me, just adding skirt material. But I wanted it on a shaky head in particular, with a little stouter hook that I could. Yeah, it does. So you get that elongated look. Yeah, man. But the Ned Dread, I bought a bunch of them. I love that thing, man. That thing is so hot and it works, dude. So if anybody is a Ned rig fisherman and you want to step up your Ned rig game, check out that Ned Dread from Brian Schmidt's Custom Tackle, and they are available on Tackle Warehouse. That is a bad to the bone build, and it's got the little button head, mushroom head. It's what you want. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah. I don't know the other guys. What's the name of his, Kuda? Come on,
Brian Cole. We talked about in chat earlier. Brian's Custom Tackle.
Yeah.
Brian's Custom Tackle.
Yeah.
And he has his own webpage that you can find his stuff at.
But does he have a Ned style one or a shaky head, or just talking about jigs?
He does. He has a Ned style, and he's the one that makes the jigs that Debo held up earlier with the cross style. He makes the cross style. And if you look at his Instagram page, he makes several Ned styled finesse jigs that are hybrid that are pretty phenomenal.
And the thing that I'll add to his is I ordered some of his Ned EWGs too. So I've got the do it mold. I've made my own Ned EWGs, but this cat takes the time to tie a freaking fluorocarbon soft plastic holder on there because if you get around talking about grass, Eric, you get a plastic that's just a little bit worn out on a shaky head or a Ned, any sort of straight shank type hook that doesn't have a keeper, it's going to slide down, right? You start pulling it through that grass, it pulls it off, and then every other throw, you're fixing your plastic.
It's a pain.
Pulled down. This cat, Brian, takes the time to tie a fluorocarbon or mono, I don't know what it is, onto his Ned hooks. I shared some of those with my buddy Rendizzle. He's like, dude, this dude hand ties these? I'm like,
that's incredible.
This dude hand ties these. Yeah, you've really got to take a love into the art when you're doing that kind of stuff.
And Brian,
how do you guys like the? Oh, real quick, can I ask a question about the EWG Ned from Do It? Yeah. How do you like that? Yeah. How's the hookup ratio on it? Do you like what's going on with that? I haven't thrown it yet. I haven't thrown the weedless version. I've thrown Neds with weed guards and done very well. But the EWG has my attention. I just wanted to know what anybody's experience was, particularly you, Debo, since you mentioned you poured it.
Game changer for me. So not necessarily the Do It stuff. I've put in time and caught stuff on the Do It, but most of my time was with the Flatlands tackle, a little bit different head style, but he did different hook sizes. And I hope that's something that Do It does in the future because it comes with either a 1 or 1/0. I forget which it is off the top of my head. But pretty small hook, which is fine for most like TRDs and stuff.
Sure.
But if you want to go with just a little bit different, like again, going into the power finesse, sometimes I like something with just a little bit bigger hook to compensate for a little bit bigger plastic. So I hope they do that. But as far as bank fishing, freaking game changer when it comes to Ned rig, dude.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
It is.
To hear. Yeah. Wow.
The only thing I'll do, Eric, and I think you and I even talked about this at one point in time. So here's the thing. Like everything else, I think things, I would like to see a bigger hook on time. So hopefully that comes, just like Debo said.
Okay.
But one of the things that I did, and you know this, Eric, because I've I've showed you, right? And I've held them up and we've talked about this, is what I'll do is I will always take the hook and I just give it a little bit of a bend out to get a little bit more offset from the alignment with the hook eye. I have to tell you, I'm used to Ned rigging and having exposed hooks. So like this was a new concept for me. So basically I didn't use this in any of the places where I would always use a Ned rig. So where I did use it is I used it at the ponds and it absolutely crushed. So I would throw out what I was using 4-inch Yum Dingers. And that's what I was using on the back end.
There you go.
And I put 4-inch Yum Dingers on the back of these things and I would throw it out and I'd bring them up to weed lines and let them drop or drop them in holes. And it was great. I felt like I was Texas rigging to an extent and dropping it in holes. But the difference, it was totally different. And I don't even think I fully have grasped the scope of what I can use that jig for now in the applications. If you have sparse weeds and things like that and bringing it through, next level. But I love it for dropping it on weed lines and in weed pockets. I like it for fishing weeds, you know?
Okay.
But listen, I got to tell you, I'm not using this heavy. I'm using this on, people are going to laugh when I say this, but my pond fishing setup for that rig is I'm throwing it on 8-pound fluorocarbon, 8-pound fluorocarbon, because I still use fluorocarbon quite a bit on my spinning rod when I'm fishing the ponds. I like it more for cranks. I like it.
No braid to fluoro, just straight fluoro.
No, straight fluoro. Okay. And part of that, let's be fair, part of that is me not wanting to elaborate my rigs when I go fishing ponds. Pond fishing is my time, right?
Man.
But I have learned now. Listen, I know that I can't get midsummer and try and use the same technique, and I can't pull them out. But if I had to, I would switch off and go braid. And if I was dropping, I would go straight braid on that rig if I was fishing heavier cover. No joke.
Yeah.
I haven't done it, but I like fishing it and bringing it up to weed lines, dropping it on weed lines, deep water weed lines, outside weed lines. And then I'd come over, but I love the technique, but I don't fully grasp it yet. I don't normally fish like that with a jig like that. So it's different for me.
No, it's
Makes
awesome.
sense?
So Debo, why did you say it was a game changer, man? Because you say you don't say that often. Tell us about your experience with it.
I'm glad you brought that up, Kuda, because so that's kind of what we've run into is so when you're fishing from the bank, talking about versatility, I have no problem going braid to a leader because of the sensitivity. So I'll tie leaders all day with like an Alberto knot. I can tie that with my eyes closed in like 20 seconds. But when it comes to a drop shot, dude, I don't want to take more than 73 minutes to tie a drop shot rig. And that's what it takes bare minimum to tie those. Anybody tries to tell me you're wrong.
Oh, that's the truth. Especially with the FG knot, which I call the FT knot.
Oh my God.
The FT knot
stands for F that.
F that.
Yeah, I've got to get off stream now.
I'm with you, brother. No
I know
way.
it catches fish, but so that's the thing for us is like my buddy, like I was saying, my buddy Randy has kicked my butt so many times with jigs that I would throw a Ned rig and oftentimes have good success. But for me, it's a deal of trying to go as light as you can get away with.
Yes.
Around those rocks and cover, you're going to be that much more successful. However, with an exposed hook, you don't have the liberty of fishing from a boat and going shallow to deep or visible cover to bring by at what you can see.
Yeah, you're pulling it uphill.
Right. So it's a whole different game. So just having that buried in the plastic and Cuda, I'm kind of the opposite. So I like to bury the hook in. So I don't pop it up where I don't get as good of like biting the plastic. I bend it out. So I'll go like sideways with it and bend it, put it into the plastic. So I still get a little bit of offset, but I'm still stuck in that, like when I come over, wood and stuff. But game changer from the bank, because like you were saying, I can come up to grass lines with it. I can bounce it over, logs and wood. I can go over rocks. So it's kind of like a do it all terrain 4x4.
Yeah. There you go.
Which is like
terrain 4x4. I like it.
Yeah. And that's where it kind of gets blurry because my buddy Randy's not a big Ned rig fan. He's like, why don't you just fish a shaky head? You're doing the same thing. I'm like,
no,
you want to fight me?
Altogether.
Yeah. And I'm like, you want to fight me? You just said
you want to fight me.
Yeah. He's like, dude, he's like, I'm throwing an 1/8 ounce shaky head, and I come to the same spots you are. It's weedless. I'm like, but it's not a net reel. It's not.
Different.
But that's what's cool is because you can like
the yin and yang. What's your favorite finesse bait on that rig? What's your go-to? I gotta know. Like when you're throwing that EWG Ned weedless, what do you got on the back end? Kuda's got the 4-inch dinger. What do you got?
Most of the time we're fishing riprap banks, like when we get that stuff out, and it's been really hard for me to beat the Z-Man TRD craws.
Good.
Like around here we don't have like gigantic craws, and I don't think I have. I actually grabbed a bunch of dead craws and like craws that were washed up, took them from my paint booth to match, but most of the craws around here are pretty small. Like it's not like the big crazy ones you see in Texas that are red. They're pretty small. The claws aren't super huge unless you get into like the rusty craws, which are an invasive species around here.
They are,
but like everywhere. Most of the regular craws are pretty small, like pretty
3 inches, 2.5, 2 3/4.
Yeah, 2.5, 3 inches is all. They're pretty small little guys. So those have always done really well for me.
Very cool. Very cool.
Nice. Those craws, any of the Z-Man stuff too, Debo. The place I like them is wade in the rivers.
Excuse me for a sec. Oh,
I like wading in the rivers, and I'll use the Z-Man stuff, and I just kind of like the way it falls into the little pockets and seams, and I just like the flow of it all. Usually I like sometimes it's heavy as like eighth ounce, but just I have to learn to use that jig style more, because I kind of get set in my ways when some of my techniques. Listen, I go so light in ponds, people would fall over with what I use, and I don't even tell people sometimes.
I'm on the opposite side. I'll go too heavy to make sure I can get them out because I would rather have somebody peel off my fingernail than break off a fish. I freaking hate it, dude. I absolutely hate breaking off a fish.
I'm a light line person, so that's all I'll say on that. And for what it's worth, like we go pretty light when we're fishing the rivers too. Like we'll wade the rivers quite a bit, but when we're wading rivers, I'm talking about like in Northwest Illinois, Kankakee River, DuPage River, things like that are decent sized rivers, right? But they're not these larger boating rivers that are kind of next level. You got a lot of guys in jet boats and John boats, and so it's the experience is a little bit different, but I will say the technique is fun. Eric knows this. Eric, what's the hook? What's the hook that I would use on for many years for most of my river jigs that I would talk about because they would bend out? Do you remember me saying this?
No.
The Eagle Claw.
Remind me, man.
The Eagle Claw.
You mentioned it earlier. Well, I don't remember the 575. You mentioned Eagle Claw earlier.
That's just the hook we've always tied on, and I would use the old RHB 7A round ball head jig mold from Do It, and then the other one I don't know the number, but it had more of a speared, pointed keeper on it. But I mean that's what we used to use. Old school. When I for many years I poured 3 colors in jigs: black, white, and green pumpkin. And I use one of those heads.
I mean, still great looking colors today, man. There you go, right?
Today, yeah.
Now I like,
man. Black.
I'll tell you the best color out there.
One, black. Yeah. What?
Lots of good colors out there, but DEBO'S a guy that turned me on to this color again, or reminded me. SDG throws this color. DEBO knows. Root beer. The root beer powder paint is next level from Protect. It is so beautiful. DEBO, tell us about root beer.
People like to hear me say it. Everybody makes fun of me because apparently I say it wrong. I say root beer.
Root beer.
It's root beer. Root.
Yes.
I call it root beer. But like the motor oil, like root beer, the root beer and the Protect looks a little bit different. But I remember like back in the day, I had some of these worms that were like a motor oil with like little dimples in them that just destroyed. And I was fishing a shaky head like when I was little out of necessity, just taking like a regular ball headed jig and then you thread a little bit of it on and just put it on so it was weedless. I was doing that just out of necessity because I got tired of getting snagged. And little did I know that was like a shaky head. I had no clue.
Yeah, right on. Well, the original shaky head was the jig worm, man. Back the old codgers. That everybody thinks they're throwing something new. It's not, man.
Yeah, the old Strike King ball heads were just that. It was literally just a elongated ball head jig, and that was their shaky head. I've still got a bunch of those. When Gander Mountain went out of business, I was getting those 3-packs for like 90 cents. Yeah, so I stocked up like 20.
The Strike King ones?
Yeah, in the yellow box have like the 3.
I know exactly what you're talking about, man.
That's crazy.
That and the 11 packs of the gammy hooks, like your number 4 size.
Oh, dude, 90 cents. Oh, what? Are you kidding me? Yeah. No way. That's crazy. Yeah. That's stealing, man. That's stealing. That's stealing.
And the crazy part was we had Gander Mountain go out of business, and they came back a few years later, only stayed a couple years and went out of business again. And then I spent, that was just recently, I spent way too much.
Are they done now, like across the board? Is Gander done? Because there was some up in northern Illinois. I haven't seen one.
I think they only kept the places that were Gander merged with Camping World, where they had the campers and the Gander stuff.
Yes.
Like if it was just a Gander, they closed them all around here. So
that's awesome.
Dang, man. Crazy. That does suck. That does suck.
So many good things, my man. I think it was awesome having some new perspectives, some new conversations. And I mean, like I said, I made mention earlier, the Jig Squad thing is supposed to be about everybody. Like everyone's got a story and what they bring to the table. And I personally have enjoyed watching your journey. And you make your videos and you post things about making jigs, and I just love it because I think the more people we have in our community that are able to have these discussions, I'm super excited that you got the Wacky jig mold. As I will always, as I told Eric, I will always give honor to my guy who was making those. Eric knows my favorite part is that he made them with the dumbbell eyes from the fly tying. I love it, but the whack job,
that's the newest version, man. My old one was, dude, that was I made it with the
that's awesome,
the gremlin. Yeah, man. And
but the possibilities are endless, right, man?
They ate it, man. They eat it. And by the way, there was a weedless one that I would put a weedless little Kaylee hook. How do you say that? Wire guard. I think I could be wrong. Cal. I think they were a War Eagle, and I would throw that in the grass with the wire weed guard, man, with that little 3/16 ounce, and just put anything on the back of it, man. Forget about it, dude. You could throw a Wacky freaking Senko in there. Oh my gosh.
And how you can't have anything like regular. You can't just get a mold and do anything regular. I haven't gotten into like dremeling or any of that, but have you tried putting 2 of the weed guards in? Because one, I think I moved all those.
That's what I'm talking about.
Is that what
there you go? Little V thing would be awesome, Debo.
Get
it. Here, man. I'm putting my hat on because it's cold down here, man, in the basement. Hold on, excuse me.
Oh yeah.
Well, you could do it. So I call it the adjuster. You literally put in what you want, or the hook, and I take a small little piece of scrap 2x4 and I set it over the top of the mold out in the garage, and I literally take a hammer and I whack the piss out of it. And basically, it's called the adjuster. I call it the adjuster. The adjuster.
You have an appointment with the adjuster if you keep acting up, Eric.
That's exactly right. You could be adjusted. So basically, you just pound it, and it'll start to create that impression. And so
no way. Are you serious?
Closed. That's how I don't Dremel anything out. If my hook doesn't fit that I want my mold, I put the hook in, I make sure it's closed, hold it tight. I put a small scrap piece of 2x4 over the mold. I lay it on the garage floor and I whack.
So that aluminum's so soft that you're just forcing it into the aluminum.
Custom, Jig Squad custom.
Wow.
So
dude, I'm going to try that because that was the only thing with those round ball headed jigs. My buddy Randy and I are like, I want to get a little bit heavier hook in there, right?
Yes.
So I'm like, I know there's a hook specifically that I was looking at, and on the thing on Do It, it says does not fit this hook, like in big.
It'll tell you.
Yeah.
But you in Debo, whatever you're trying to, if you have a specific hook on that mold, and you're thinking about it, you could tell. Like if you get the hook and then you put it in there and you basically just get it lined up right and you give it a whack. I don't like whacking the mold without having a piece of wood over the top of it. The other thing you could do is you could take a rubber mallet and do that as well. You can use a rubber mallet without the wood. I like putting the wood there because it causes
the wood and just take my frustration out on it.
A little more adjustment. But the thing is, at the end of the day, as long as the hook's aligned, you're basically only increasing the diameter of the eyelet of the hook is what you're really changing. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay, I'm raising my hand because I have a penchant for interrupting, and I apologize in advance.
No. Come on, this is good talk.
All right, so you're talking about modifying the jig mold for your hook. So you don't take the time to modify the hook to fit the jig mold. You modify the jig mold to fit the hook.
That's correct.
So let me ask you a question. Let's say this Sparky jig that Uncle Frank is building. He takes that Gamakatsu 111, and a lot of people were talking on the stream tonight that he bends the hook. Has anybody on the stream done that? Do you have to actually heat the hook till it's red hot and then you bend it to a certain degree? How the heck can you know, like, okay, I bend it from 60 to 30 or whatever it is? You know what I mean?
I don't have a good answer on that one because
Isn't that dangerous? Like when you change a hook, you're not forging it at home, right?
I think you mess with the tempering too. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, Debo, right? Yeah. I've seen guys do it. Look, there's a legion of guys around here that'll take an owner deep throat hook and heat it to bend it to fit a jig mold because they believe that owner deep throat hook, literally when they hook the fish on that swim jig, they don't come off. I've thrown it. I only have a handful because I'm not in the group of guys that are out there, in the wintertime, like right now, pouring 100 of these things and heating the hooks and bending them and sticking them in and, powder coating and tying. Anyway, my 2 cents. I was curious if anybody has experience with that. What do you think? Would you trust it in a tournament after you heated it, screwed with the tempering like DEBO'S talking about? I'm going, oh, is it going to last? I don't know. Patrick says no.
I don't know. I mean, the reason that there's a reason why these hooks are tempered, right? And that it's based on the forging process. But here's the thing. I've got to believe that there is here's my comparable. Look at the guys that throw the owner beast hook for the underswims on those gigantic plastic swim baits, right? You know what I'm talking about? Those big 8-aught, 10-aught.
You mean like the one I caught my 8.6 on this year?
Yes, just like that.
Go ahead.
You hear those guys talking all the time about they're bending those hooks out, and sometimes substantially.
Well, how about the guys that bent the frog hooks out, like on the Spro for years? You got to bend it out and up a little bit. I mean, those hooks are so big.
I think
I know. How do you
is if you bend it, so it's like a paper clip. You can bend it in one direction, no issue, right? But once you start going back and forth, it weakens that section. I think if you bend it once and leave it, I think once you start adding heat to it, if you're into knife making or blade making or anything, if you've hardened a blade and got it to that point where it's tempered and hardened, once you start introducing heat again, you're going to mess with that hardening point. It might not be that same hardened, tempered blade, hooks. I don't know.
Right. Well, Swim Jig 50 said that he made a jig for it. He caught a 611, didn't break it. So anyway, a lot of guys do it, man.
Also, Eric,
if I'm fishing against you, yes, hook all your hooks and I'll tie them in a pretzel.
So listen, what Trippy Sticks is saying here too, I have known people that have tried bending out the eyes in order to get the blades directly on to like for chatterbaits, right? There's other ways to do it. But I have known people that have done that. And what I was told, and I don't know what the hooks are, some hooks you could do it with and others you couldn't.
Sure.
So
I'm just curious.
Look at Tackle. Look at what TK is saying here. If I'm fishing against you, yes, hook all your hooks and tie them in a pretzel.
No. He says, yes, heat all your hooks and tie them in a pretzel.
Talk about a guy that can sling some freaking paint.
Wow, right?
That dude knows a thing or 17.
A thing or 17, he sure does. Eric, those are a lot of good questions, buddy. We're going to have to kind of bring some of those back in time.
That's all TK Pan right
I shouted you out. Retro sent me a pogo.
Did he really?
I saw those pogos in that box.
What?
Yeah.
No way, man.
I shouted you out on that video.
Oh, dude, what? I got it. Oh, man. I can't believe I missed it. There's the pogo that you're talking about. That's a TK special.
I got the red and white one. Red head and white.
That's a TK special. I know. Am I still blurry? I'm coming in.
No,
finally.
I said before you're
better,
clear, dude. You are.
I'm back. I'm crispy. I just had to do
finally
a
back,
porn, man. Anyway, and I'm just proud of this one because I'm going to show my Sally Hansen work off. There is a Morning Dawn, Aaron's Morning Dawn. That's by me, and TK did the reproduction for me. I sent him down the paint, and he made it even perfecter. If that's a word.
Perfect.
Look
It is.
how
We
that
understood
matches
you.
the Aaron's Morning Dawn. Is that incredible? Are you kidding me? I mean, anyway.
Imagine that on some jigs, Eric.
Dude. Whoa, Cuda.
Just saying, dude.
Aaron's Morning Dawn, or just
I have some poured Wacky. I have to finally send these to you because I have the poured batches. I'm going to send you some of the 8th and 16th ounce and the other one other side in the Wacky hook molds. I'm going to send you some from Do It. But you got to, the only thing I ask, you got to try and do some version of that color in the head.
I have it. I can do it. I have the paint. I got the nail polish that matches it perfectly. I can't believe it. I was trying to do a margarita mutilator, but the Aaron Morning Dawn is available on the Bass Lab along with my new beanie. And I'm donating all the profits to the Aaron Morning's Dawn crankbaits to the GoFundMe page for the Martin's family. Awesome. So yeah, and I'll probably go over whatever I make on it because he meant a lot to me in the fishing world. He was just interesting to me. He really thought about everything, and he was very detailed. He was a tinkerer, and if you know,
especially too.
If you know me, you know I'm a tinkerer, and he touched my bass soul. I totally, I bought a lot of things that he talked about. I've fished a lot of things that he's talked about. He put a lot of fish in the boat for me. I learned a lot about drop shotting because I was a new drop shotter. I remember watching one of his YouTube videos. Anyway, enough about that, but there you go. So anyway, we can't go this stream without talking about crankbaits. I was so happy when Debo brought his out. I'm like, yes, we got some crankbaits on the Jig Squad stream. Yes. How did we do it? Yes.
It's okay.
I'm going there now.
If we have to be able to talk about the other things that excite us sometimes, because I do believe that a lot of our experiences, look what we were talking about earlier. We're talking about airbrushing. Airbrushing traditionally in the fishing world has always been about crankbaits.
Sure.
To do it with jigs is maybe overkill, but how cool. Anyone who's ever seen the ultra minnow jig mold in the saltwater, or used in the saltwater world, but also for a lot of freshwater applications, anyone who's ever seen the ultra minnow that's been airbrushed is phenomenal. And it really looks cool. There's a lot of neat stuff. And so, all right, guys. Well, listen, we are getting close to the 2-hour mark, and I have a rule about the 2-hour mark, and it always is my thing. Eric knows this. I gotta have this.
Gotta take care of the little kudos.
I gotta take care of the family, right?
I'm so sad that I'm finally clear and the stream's wrapping up, man, because I felt like I was out of the game. I finally get to stream with Debo.
I don't know what the hell happened to your stream tonight. It's never been like this.
I was a blur.
Let's crash my channel
day,
Saturday.
Man.
You two hop on my channel Saturday.
I'll crash on with you.
I'll come on Saturday.
All right, Saturday.
We'll come and dance, and that way we could talk more crankbaits.
Now I can pick your brains.
Yes.
Now you don't get to make fun of me being the beginner and all my crappy work. I get to pick your guys' brains now.
Nice.
I think that you're awesome, Debo, and I appreciate you tremendously for coming on. I think people need to see the people in our industry in the videos that everyone watches. We've got to see that people are out there making things, right?
That's right.
And
man.
This is how we motivate people to get into this jam. So you guys listen. Debo, thank you very much for coming tonight. I'm gonna end this stream. We're gonna play the little outro. You guys all know the deal. If you guys haven't caught the original show, they decided to ding me on the first 2 shows because of the music I had in my intro and outro. Even though I do have a right, I appealed and I got the appeal, but I just don't want to keep going through having to appeal every single time I play my intro and outro. So I took the music out, but sooner or later it's going to be back. Guys, this is Jig Squad. If you are live and in chat, I appreciate you being here tonight. If you are watching on replay, stay tuned. Next week, we have Gary Sheets from 9K Lures is coming, and he makes some killer jigs, and he will be on with us next Thursday. We are booked. We got shows going all the way into March, right, Eric?
Yes.
So I am excited. We are going to hit this all the way to spring in style. But Debo, thank you very much for being on tonight. And I would love to come on and hang out with you on Saturday. Is Dizzle going to be on with you Saturday?
Hopefully we can get Dizzle on too. It depends on if his old lady's got him doing something. Who knows?
Okay.
We might have lost him for next fishing season, but
for the entire season already?
Who knows? Hey, I mean, who knows?
Oh my gosh. We need his voice back. Dizzle needs his voice back, and I will be there to hang out. I appreciate you all tremendously. Good night to everyone.
Right on, man.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kuda. Thank you,
Peace,
Debo.
guys.
Thank you, everybody out there. Awesome.
We're out.